no one expected. What should have been the end of a misunderstanding turned into the beginning of a major upheaval. When Taehyung and Jungkook finally spoke, many hoped for one simple thing: peace. The word sorry had been uttered. Their voices sounded sincere. Their facial expressions were heavy. But the ARMY's reaction was unexpected. Instead of accepting, some armies emphatically said, "No." The rejection spread quickly. Social media was immediately on fire. Comments poured in, sharp, emotional, and full of disappointment. For some fans, this apology came too late. For others, it wasn't honest enough. And for a small minority, it actually reopened old wounds that hadn't fully healed. Taehyung looked silent. Jungkook tried to hold on, though the look in his eyes couldn't hide the distress. What was really going on behind the scenes? Why did a sincere apology actually cause division? And will this affect their relationship with ARMY going forward? One thing is for sure. This moment isn't just another controversy. This is a point where trust is tested. Where fandom love collides with disappointment. And where one word, sorry, isn't always enough. But amidst the flurry of comments and debate, there was one thing that many people missed. The silence. The silence that followed the apology. The silence between two big names who usually appeared full of laughter and energy. Taehyung didn't say much. He chose to remain silent, as if every word felt too heavy to say. Meanwhile, Jungkook, who usually appeared strong, couldn't hide the anxiety on his face. For them, this wasn't just about clarification. It was about guilt, about fear of disappointing, and about the relationship with ARMY, who had become their home. But ARMY wasn't united. The vast fandom was divided. Some chose to persevere, believing that humans make mistakes and deserve a second chance. But others felt that a line had been crossed. They asked, why now? Why did it have to happen first? Is this truly from the heart, or is it because of pressure? The questions continued to echo, with no truly satisfying answers. The media also added fuel to the fire. Video clips were circulated without context. Sensational headlines emerged. And a narrative began to form, no longer about an apology, but about a crisis of trust. At this point, the chaos was unstoppable. Taehyung and Jungkook may have apologized. But what they now faced was something far more difficult. Mending an invisible wound. Because the greatest wound didn't come from the mistake itself, but from the sense of shattered hope. ARMY, who once defended, now chose to question. ARMY, who once cheered, now chose silence. And silence is sometimes more painful than anger. Will this change everything? Will the relationship between BTS and ARMY ever return to its former glory? Or will this moment be the dividing line between a trusting past and a more cautious future? No one knows. But one thing became clear. No matter how great a love is, if it isn't nurtured with honesty and sensitivity, it can turn into deep disappointment. and for Taehyung and Jungkook. That night wasn't about the apologies they'd already said, but about how to deal with the consequences. Because after all this, nothing is ever truly the same again. And ARMY now stands at a crossroads. To forgive or to distance themselves. Instead of abating, the conversation grew more intense. Armies around the world began to speak out in their own ways. Some wrote long, tearful messages. Some chose cold, curt words. And still others stopped speaking altogether. For Taehyung, every notification felt like a burden. Not out of hatred, but out of disappointment, which was far more painful. He read. He understood. But not all feelings can be answered with words. Jungkook was in the same boat. He tried to appear strong, but behind his forced smile, there was a lingering fear. Are we really losing them this time? Because armies aren't just fans. Armies are witnesses to the journey. Armies are the ones who endure the ups and downs. Armies are the reason the dream lives on. And when that support begins to waver, all that's left are unspoken questions. In closed rooms, the conversation becomes slower, more honest, more vulnerable. No cameras, no spotlights. Just silence and the realization that every action has an impact. They begin to realize one important thing. An apology isn't the end of everything. It's the beginning of a much longer and more painful process. Because restoring trust can't be done with one statement. It can't be resolved overnight.
And if one day the storm came again,
and it can't be forced.
They knew. This time, they wouldn't stand alone,
struggles with their own
because
feelings.
love that had once nearly collapsed was
Between the love
no
that
longer
hasn't
naive.
disappeared
It knew what it felt like
and
to
the
be
boundaries
broken,
that are now being built.
and that's precisely where
Some
they
ask
learned how to
themselves,
survive, together.
Does forgiving mean ignoring our feelings? Others ask, does distancing ourselves mean we no longer care? There are no right answers. Only difficult choices. And amidst all of this, time continues to tick. The stage will light up again. The music will start again. But something has changed. Not on the outside, but on the inside. Trust is more fragile now. Words are more calculated. And every step feels watched by greater expectations than ever. Will this relationship ever fully recover? Or will it emerge in a different form? More mature, more cautious, but no longer the same? No one can be sure. What is certain is that this moment will always be remembered as the moment everyone learned that even the greatest love can be hurt. And from that hurt, one crucial thing will be determined. Will they drift apart or find a new way to survive? Amidst the noise of opinions and debates, one thing slowly surfaced, an honesty that could no longer be hidden. Taehyung and Jungkook began to understand that what ARMY needed wasn't just clarification, nor was it carefully crafted words. What they sought was a sense of understanding. Because for ARMY, the pain was real. not because of hatred, but because of caring too much.